good you're here. I'm so happy you've decided to get serious about taking your dream business to the next level using funding. No more business loans, no more using your emergency funds, no more confusion on where to start, where to get support, and what to do if and when you get stuck. My name is Sloan. Welcome to the Nothing for Granted podcast. I'm a funding expert, a beauty academy owner, and a homeschooling mom of 4. This is the place to be, to learn tips to get your dream business funded. You're going to learn tactful research and grant writing tips so you can use them while applying to grants. Because I too am a busy visionary CEO / mama / a million other hats, I'm sharing with you my top kingdom entrepreneurship tips. You're going to get answers to questions like, how do I infuse God into my business? How do you juggle all of the things without resenting your work? And how do you market yourself as a freelancer or solopreneur so that you can increase your impact? When you're building something that's never been built before, you need someone that's going to be that tough love friend. You need someone that's going to hold you accountable to the vision that is uniquely yours. Everything, hear me on this, everything that you have experienced has led you up to this very moment. And because of that amazing grace, we're not taking anything for granted. Let's jump right into the show. Let's jump right into today's episode, which is for you if you are a minority, or maybe you're not and you were raised in an environment where money wasn't really talked about, where you saw just really toxic habits and mentality and just verbiage around finances. This is definitely an episode that you want to listen to, and I would love to continue this conversation even beyond this episode, because I do think that it's not talked about enough. I think that the more we educate ourselves, the more we push ourselves outside of our comfort zones as minorities when it comes to finances, the better off and more secure and more freedom we will experience. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I am Dominican. I am a first generation Latin American. And let me just pause here for just a second, because there's some people that they'll ask me. I have a very ethnic look to me, and so I always get the question of, oh, where are you from? What's your ethnicity? What is, your originality? And I'll say Dominican. And if I'm with my mom, she'll say, no, she's American. And I'm like, but I'm Dominican. Okay, so I definitely want to create an episode all about that. I would love to hear your thoughts on, does this happen to you? If it does happen to you, how do you respond? So we can definitely get into that in a later episode. But I am a first generation Latin American. Both of my parents immigrated here from Dominican Republic, and when they did, my mom actually came first. She came about 4 years prior to my dad, I believe. And that cultural difference was massive for her. She went straight to New York City, and getting acclimated to the culture, getting acclimated to the economy here in the United States, much less New York City, right? Which is just so robust and in culture and so intense. If you've ever been to New York City, it's an overwhelming feeling. It's this feeling of, oh my, like grandeur, you know what I mean? And I lived in New York for a little bit, and having that experience was incredible. And this is 20th century, we're talking back in the 90s. She's living in New York, and so I can't imagine what that must have been like for her. Somebody who came from ultimately what was like royalty. My mom was raised in a very affluent family, worked hard. My grandparents really worked their way up from nothing. They come from really big families, and went got their college education. They were entrepreneurs in their own right. They worked for massive companies for a very, very long time as well. And so my mom was raised with nannies and what in Santo Domingo is called trabajadoras, or workers, which is a lot like cleaning ladies, people that cooks, and again, she had a nanny that would mostly take care of her. So she was raised very well. She had a lot of privilege growing up in the Dominican Republic, and to go to New York City, to go from this beautiful, 2.5-story house to this tiny room in, I believe, I know where she was, in Washington Heights, where, there's a ton of Dominicans, and of course she's in Washington Heights, and she's in this community where there's constant shootings. She saw people die in front of her. Actually, one of her family members was shot in front of her, and just so much trauma and so much cultural shock that occurred there that she wasn't really ready for. And that was just, again, in terms of culture. When we're talking about in terms of finances, where now you are completely pretty much self-sufficient and self-reliant, what do? You're not used to working. You're not used to having to manage your money. You're not used to having to budget. And so she began this journey of having to work a part-time job and manage her budget, not just for herself, but to send money back to my dad as he tried to get papers to come to the States. And so my mom was a single parent for the most part, even once my dad moved to then Miami. My mom ended up moving down to Florida. My dad was really in and out of the picture. And so this was just a wake-up call for her of, hold on, I'm going to have to figure this out. Now she has 3 kids, and it's a very different lifestyle to what she's used to. And so I really want to pause there and talk about these 2 extremes, now that you know a little bit about my background, these 2 extremes on what I believe to be toxic Latin American money mindset. And it's number 1, it's the senseless spending. So my family and what I've seen in other families and other conversations that we've had, there is this spending habit that is out of control, right? And we see it all across the board, not just in the Hispanic community, all across the board, where they cannot help themselves. If there is a sale, they have to buy it because it's on sale. Who knows when it's going to be discounted at this rate again? They don't need it, but they have to have it because it's on sale. If they are if they want something, even if they can't afford it, they will still purchase it. Even if that means that now they're short for their next paycheck or whatever the case is, they will still make that expense. And so it's senseless spending that's non-stop. And to me, as an adult now with my own 4 children, I'm like, what? This is crazy. How do you buy things that you can't afford? Why would you do it? Even credit cards to me is crazy. Like, I have this constant just back and forth with my husband about credit cards and about credit card debt, and while I understand the importance of building credit, I am of the mentality, if I don't got cash, I'm not gonna buy it. If I don't got it, I don't got it. Like, I want to make sure that I have tangible money in place to make my purchases. If I don't, I'm not going to get it. I don't want to get anything on loan. I just don't want to make the same mistakes that I made in my early, young adult ages. And that's really what ended up happening, because my mom was just, she didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're not taught, right? How could she teach me about how to use credit? There's no education out there on, for Latin Americans especially, or to equip Latin American parents to help their children understand how to utilize credit, how to save for a rainy day, money management, budgeting, retirement. Like, these are things that are so important. And I remember being an adult and having this conversation with my parents even of, I'm going to be taking some financial classes because I need to start saving money for my retirement as an entrepreneur. I'm not going to be working for a company. I don't see myself doing that ever again. And so I need to make sure that I have just the proper things in place so that tomorrow my kids aren't in a tough position because I did not do proper planning. And my stepdad was just like, well, that's crazy. You don't even know if you're going to live from here to tomorrow, much less from here to your 60s and 70s. And for a second, I was like, yeah, you're totally right. And then I was like, no, you're not. That's that toxic mentality. That's that toxic mentality. While I understand that we don't know, we're not promised tomorrow, I also understand that the Bible tells us to be affluent in our way of thinking and of a way of working, to plan properly, right? God is a God of organization. And so while I understood that point, it was also like, oh, wait a minute. Your kids are already adults. You're already working into your 50s because you have no retirement money saved up. I don't want to be like that. I want to be smarter. I want to understand how to make my money work for me and not me work for my money. And most importantly, position myself so that my children don't have to financially support me. And so it really comes down to their mindset and their lack of understanding and their lack of education on finances. Because in countries like ours, the system is just so different, right? You work, you go to school, you get a good education, you get a good job, and then you work for that company for X amount of years, and everybody has a side hustle, right? Whether it's selling sofrito en pasteles or if you're selling clothes on the side, everybody has a side hustle. You live in the same house pretty much your entire life, or at least the same community pretty much your entire life. You are inheriting money from your parents and property from your parents. Here, you don't see that as often. Here, that is not necessarily the case, especially in the Latin American community, where I have seen so many people pass away and the only inheritance that their children are left with is debt. And so this comes down to lack of education on financial literacy, honestly. So number one, the first extreme is this senseless spending. This second extreme is one that I cannot stand. I've actually cut people off for this. I refuse to talk money with people who cannot get out of their own butt when it comes to this. And it's nonstop complaining of how expensive things are. That is such a trigger point for me, because I believe that the word expensive, I believe that the word baroque, I believe that your understanding of money is really relative to your situation, to your upbringing, to your culture. And so for you to say, wow, that's expensive, well, how do you know that's expensive for me? It may be expensive for you based off of where you're at with your money situation, but for me, it may not be. I may have, hit certain numbers that enable me to do this. I may be comfortable spending that amount because I don't spend in other areas, that's a relative term. And in the Latin American community, everything is expensive. Oh, you're paying $500 for that? Damn, that's expensive. And of course, we could go into all of the phrasing. I would love that. But everything is, acho, mano, eso está bien caro. Yo no sé cómo tú puedes pagar eso. Like, what? What? Like, are we so small-minded that forever we're going to think $500 is expensive and not an investment? I know that for example, hiring help for my business, whether it's a graphic designer or even my business coach. I remember when I was hiring a graphic designer, my mom was like, how much did you pay for that? And I said, I paid, roughly $500, $600 with, all of the unexpected things that I had to pay for, like platforms and things like that. $600, you could have just gotten your sister to do that for you. That is so expensive. How could you afford that? And I'm like, but it's an investment that will pay dividends and has paid dividends. I said, I don't see $500 as being expensive for this business that is my career. That's my future. That's my legacy. that's not expensive to me. But $500 for someone else, like my parents or like my grandparents, that's crazy. That's crazy amount of money. And so they stay in this cycle of, I can't afford that. That's too much money. And it's this crazy, just, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. It's this crazy space of you're either spending too much money that you don't need over here and not really understanding the value of spending the right amount of money on things that are going to push the needle forward for you in your business on the other side. And value, I think, is really what it comes down to. It's understanding the value in investing in yourself. It's understanding the value in what's important to you. And it doesn't even need to be in business. It can be something as simple as taking my kids on a trip to Niagara Falls, and my mom may say, well, that's expensive. You can go to Tennessee for that amount. I understand where I can go. That's not where I want to go, though. And most importantly, the value and the experience that I'm giving these children, that I'm literally, teaching through living, that's priceless to me. And so our value points, our value compasses are very different. And again, it comes down to that education. And I'm not going to lie to you when I tell you this is something I even struggle with every single day. Guys, every day that I show up to this mic and I tell you things like, there's money out there for you. Go get it. There's money that can help you grow your business. There's money that has your name on it. There's money that, is meant to help you grow your vision. You just got to be bold enough to go out there and get it. I'm not just talking to you. I love you, but that's not just for you. These are, the Bible says that it's a double-edged sword. And so every single time that I show up here with an open heart, every single time I show up here and I say, Spirit, have your way, whatever your audience needs to hear, let that come out of my mouth and let it penetrate with them. It's penetrating me too, right? It's speaking to me too, because I am not perfect. I say these things so that I'm being fed as well at the same time as you are. And so I struggle with money mindset all of the time. I can tell you that I go to the store, and sometimes I prefer to go to the store with my husband, because I feel like, okay, if I know what I have in my wallet, and what if I don't have it? What if in the time it takes for me to go from the line to the cashier, this major expense has been, drafted from my account, and now I go to pass my card and the card declines. Mind you, I'm in the line. I'm refreshing my bank information, every couple seconds to make sure there's enough money in my account to make this purchase. I know the money's there, but yet for whatever reason, I'm still afraid that my card is going to decline. I'm afraid of that embarrassment. I'm afraid of, if I'm with my children, what are they going to think of me? What do I do? I am afraid when I'm on vacation and I'm worried about running out of money. I don't care if we, I know that we have it, and I'll still sometimes turn to my husband right before, paying for an excursion or paying for dinner, and I'll say, hey, do we got it? Like, are we good? And he's just like, this is crazy. Like, this isn't 2012. Like, we're not struggling. We're okay. We got it. It's fine. But why don't I feel that way? I stock up on food or certain things because I'm afraid of not having money 6 months from now and then not having enough. That scarcity mindset is something that I struggle with every single day. And so if you are in the same space where you're like, oh man, totally get it. I shop online because if my card declines, at least I'm not in front of anybody. Like, totally get it. This is how I'm shifting this toxic mentality. And it's number one, as you've probably heard a ton on this episode, I'm using the word money more frequently in conversation. This is actually something that makes me super uncomfortable, which is crazy because I'm a funding expert. I literally deal with money every single day, guys. I deal with money every day. And the fact that I'm not comfortable using the word money, I really had to get to the root of why. Why am I uncomfortable using the word money? Why do I feel like it's a sin? Why do I feel dirty when I say that word? Like, no, this is a resource. And it's a resource that God created so that we could advance his kingdom, so that we could advance our businesses, so that we can supply for our family. Like, this is just the trade system. And, would I feel the same way if we were back in the era of Christopher Columbus, or even the Indians before them, where they were trading stock? Like, would I feel dirty saying, here's a piece of corn for your gold ring? Like, would I feel that way still? Probably not. Probably not. But society has made money to be symbolic of just so much negativity that using the word is, you feel sleazy. And so I'm a believer of doing the things that make me uncomfortable, because that's where there's growth. And so I've been using the word money a lot more frequently in conversation so that I can really challenge myself, but also so that I can challenge other people and start posing the question of, if this makes you feel uncomfortable, shouldn't you question why? Shouldn't you figure out why you're not comfortable talking about money or talking about financial literacy? Because maybe that's an area that you need more work on as well. So the second thing that I'm doing to shift this mentality is just really get in the word. Okay. I'm really in my Bible. I actually just purchased a commentary book by Matthew Henry because I want to go deeper. I want to understand more. I want to understand the context of the verses that I'm reading. I want to really internalize everything. And in order for me to do that, there's resources out there like commentaries that just provide me further insight. And so when it comes to changing my mentality about money, it's really understanding who I am, what my identity is within the kingdom, understanding who God our Father is, and how he created money and how he distributes money, right? We can go back and look at so many times where he talks about parables, right? I believe there's 2 in specific where he has parables about just a man that distributes money between his servants and how they manage that money. And I believe that that's a reflection of how God distributes money to us and how he distributes talents to us in accordance to how we manage and administer those resources that he's given us, those talents that he's given us. And so I'm getting really in my word and really internalizing what it is God says about the resources that he has provided us with, and how that's a positive thing. That's a blessing. And I shouldn't be ashamed of that. But I also need to be really in tune with the way that I'm managing my money for myself, for my family, and for my generations to come. And so the third thing that I am doing in shifting this toxic Latin money mindset is just educating myself. You guys know that this year I am on a mission to read 1 book every single month. And this is just a personal goal that I have so that I can constantly be growing in different areas of myself. And so my book for end of July, mid-August is Profit Over Gains. I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Last year we took the, it's the Dave Ramsey, I think it's called like Dave Ramsey Financial University, that they offer at my church for free. And so I'm really just educating myself on proper money management. I'm educating myself on what my money spending habits are and where I need the most work. Minimalism has really opened my eyes to a lot of areas that I spend senselessly. And so that has been a huge that's been a huge benefit for me in really understanding, do I spend too much money on makeup? That's one area that, I love makeup, but I've really cut down in the past 2 years on the amount of makeup that I purchase. I've really gone from buying the newest palettes to really saying, what do I need to stock up on? And that's really where my makeup spending has gone. Instead of buying new things, I already know what my dailies are. I already know what my go-tos are when I'm getting fancified, and I just restock on those. And so that's an area that I've been able to, bring awareness to and really hone in on that money that money spending habit, and tweaked where I needed to tweak. Fashion is another area that I have really honed in on, really strapped down on. Again, minimalism has really helped me in that, because I know what I like. I know what looks good on me. I know what colors I typically go for. And so again, that awareness piece is everything. And as I raise these small little children, right, that are future entrepreneurs, it's super important to me and my husband to really educate them on money spending, educate them on the value of money. It's so easy for a child to go into a store and say, I want this, I want this, I want this, because they just assume we've got it. Even if we do have it, that's not the point. I want you to understand the value that thing has, the value that money has, the hard work that comes behind that. And so that's really what we're working on, especially with my older kids, just making them understand, why is it important for you to save? How hard is it for you to make $5? If this thing costs $5, for example, for my daughter, how many sets of nails do you have to complete in order to make $5 to buy this kinetic sand that you want? Conversations like those is how I'm trying to bridge that gap in lack of education and financial literacy. Like I said, I would absolutely love to continue this conversation with you. Money mindset is something that I just feel like is not talked about enough. Changing your mindset can change your entire situation. Bringing awareness to the areas of our life that we need the most opportunity to can, again, completely transform the way that you live. And so if this is something that you're experiencing, if there are 2 cents that you would love to add, I would love to hear it. You can pop into Instagram at Sloan the Beast, and we can continue the conversation there. You can join me on the Facebook group. That's bit.ly/funding and freelance. And of course, all of the links are going to be down below. Visionary, thank you so much for being here. I hope this episode has blessed you. If it has, please be sure to leave a review. I love to see them. It helps us continue to grow as we're on a mission to reach 100,000 downloads. Thank you so much for participating in that major milestone. And I will see you in next week's episode.